The year is 1620. Across Europe, faith is a battlefield. Kings claim divine right, silencing any who dare to worship differently. In England, a small, devout group known as the Puritans dreams of a life guided by their beliefs, free from the crown's control. They see the Church of England as having lost its way, a conviction that brands them as outcasts. For their faith, they are hunted, jailed, and driven into exile. But their spirit is unbreakable. They resolve to leave everything behind, their homes, their lands, their very way of life, to forge a new world across the vast, unknown ocean. They call themselves the Pilgrims, and their destiny is tied to a single ship, the Mayflower. The Pilgrims were not people of wealth or status. Most were simple farmers and artisans from small towns. Their first escape was to Holland, a land of tolerance, but not a home. Life was a constant struggle, and they watched with heavy hearts as their children began to forget their English roots and language. Their gaze turned west towards America, a land of scattered European outposts. They didn't seek gold or glory. They sought freedom, a place to live and worship according to the Scriptures, a place to build a society on faith. In July 1620, they gathered at the port of Southampton, their hopes pinned on two vessels, the Speedwell and the Mayflower. But the Speedwell proved unseaworthy, its leaks forcing it to turn back. Now only the Mayflower remained. Aboard were 102 soulsmen, women, and children, their worldly possessions reduced to food, tools, and the Holy Bible. On September 6th, under the command of Captain Christopher Jones, they set sail from Plymouth, England. Their destination was charted for Virginia, but the currents of fate were pulling them toward a different shore. The autumn Atlantic was a merciless beast. For 66 grueling days, the Mayflower was battered by violent storms, its timbers groaning under the assault of monstrous waves and freezing winds. Below deck, the conditions were grim. The cramped quarters were dark, perpetually damp, and suffocating. Sickness was rampant, and fear was a constant companion. Tragedy struck when one man was swept overboard into the raging sea. Yet, amidst the despair, there was also a miracle. A baby, aptly named Oceanus Hopkins, was born on the high seas. Through it all, the Pilgrims clung to their faith. They prayed, they sang hymns, their voices a fragile testament to their belief that God would see them through. Then, on November 9th, a shout echoed from the lookout. Land ho! They had reached the shores of Cape Cod, hundreds of miles north of their intended destination in Virginia. With winter setting in and the seas too treacherous for further travel, they knew they had to stay. They had arrived in a world that was utterly unknown, a cold, wild, and unforgiving landscape they would come to call New England. Before a single person stepped onto this new land, the leaders gathered in the cramped main cabin of the Mayflower. They knew that without a charter from the king, their survival depended on unity and order. So they drafted a solemn agreement, a covenant to govern themselves. Signed on November 11, 1620, this document became known as the Mayflower Compact. It was a revolutionary declaration. They would form a civil body politic, a government founded on the consent of the governed and the rule of the majority. Everyone pledged to work together for the common good. It was a simple promise, born of faith and necessity, but it planted one of the first seeds of American democracy. For the first time, a community would be governed not by the decree of a distant king, but by the will of the people themselves. On December 21, 1620, the Pilgrims finally made their landing on a rocky shoreline they named Plymouth, a nod to the English port they had last seen. The air was bitingly cold, the ground was frozen solid, and a blanket of snow covered the dense, silent forests. They set to work, constructing crude shelters and a simple meeting house, but the hardships were almost beyond endurance. That first winter was brutal. Disease and starvation swept through the fledgling settlement with devastating speed. By the time the snows began to melt, Half of them were gone. Men, women, and children had perished. Yet, in the face of unimaginable loss, their faith did not falter. As spring breathed life back into the land, the survivors began to rebuild. And then, something extraordinary happened. One day, a man walked confidently into their settlement and greeted them in English. His name was Samoset. He was a Native American, and his arrival was a turning point. He soon introduced them to another, Squanto, a member of the Patuxet tribe who had been taken to England years before and spoke the language fluently. Squanto became their guide, their teacher, and their friend. He taught the struggling colonists how to cultivate corn, how to fish the local rivers, and how to tap the maple trees for sap. He was their key to survival. Through him, the Pilgrims also forged a crucial peace with the powerful Wampanoag tribe and their chief, Massasoit. This alliance, one of the few lasting peaceful relationships in early colonial history, was not built on conquest, but on cooperation and mutual respect. By the autumn of 1621, a year after their perilous landing, the Plymouth Colony had not only survived, it had begun to thrive. The fields yielded a bountiful harvest, and their storehouses were full. To express their profound gratitude to God for delivering them through the hardships, Governor William Bradford declared a festival of thanksgiving. The Pilgrims extended an invitation to their Wampanoag allies, including Chief Massasoit. For 3 days, the English settlers and Native Americans shared a feast of venison, wildfowl, corn, and squash. This celebration of survival and cooperation would become immortalized as the first Thanksgiving. It was a moment of pure gratitude, not for riches or power, but for the simple gift of life and the chance to live in peace. The Pilgrims' story is unique. They didn't cross the ocean chasing rumors of gold or dreams of empire. They came for God. They came not for power, but for purpose. In their extraordinary courage and unwavering conviction, we find the very roots of the American dream. They championed the radical idea that every person had the right to worship freely, to work hard, and to build a better life for their children. Out of the frozen shores of Plymouth, a powerful belief took hold, that freedom is worth any sacrifice, that faith and labor can shape destiny, and that from the humblest of beginnings, great things can be built. Their saga became a foundational story for a new nation, a tale of faith, struggle, and enduring hope that would inspire generations to come. Over the following decades, more settlers followed the Mayflower's path, and the Plymouth Colony slowly grew. Humble homes, fertile fields, and simple meeting houses dotted the coastline. They governed themselves through town meetings, a remarkable form of direct democracy where every free man had a voice and a vote. This tradition of local self-governance would echo through the centuries, shaping the political character of America. By the mid-1600s, Plymouth stood as a powerful symbol, not of wealth or military might, but of a profound principle, that a people could live freely, guided by conscience. The Mayflower itself faded into history, its timbers likely rotting away in an English harbor, but its legacy is immortal. The voyage of those 102 souls altered the course of history. They carried no armies, no imperial banners, only their faith and their hope for a new beginning. From their journey sprang the ideals that would define a nation: freedom of religion, self-government, and the conviction that all are created with inherent dignity. The Mayflower Compact was the first political document on American soil to give voice to these ideals, and its spirit can be traced directly to the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. Today, standing on the rocky shore of Plymouth, you can almost feel the same wind that filled the Mayflower sails 4 centuries ago. The waves still whisper the same promise that drew those pilgrims across an ocean, the promise that here, in this land, a new start is possible. They called it the New World. We call it America. And the dream they began, a dream of faith, freedom, and hope, continues to inspire millions. The year 1620 was not just the beginning of a colony. It was the birth of the American dream. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story as inspiring as we do, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next video. We'll see you then.